The pandemic has shuttered large swaths of small businesses across the country, many for good, and many of which will not be the same once the pandemic is finally under control. And all because of this, our next guest has introduced a bill to help struggling performing arts venues. And joining us now to discuss that and so many more stories is Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. Senator Klobuchar, great to have you back here on Cheddar.
Well, thank you.
Let's start broadly. Why this specific bill when we're seeing so many businesses struggling right now?
Well, first of all, we've learned something during this pandemic. Well, we've learned a lot of things, but one of the things we've learned is that not all employees, not all businesses are affected in the same way. And so one of the things that we have seen is that some of the first businesses to close and some of the last to reopen are going to be music venues and theaters. And you have got places like First Avenue in Minnesota, where Prince would never have been Prince without First Avenue. You've got places like I was at yesterday, which is Moorhead, Minnesota, their Blue Stem Amphitheater or the Fargo Theater. It's not just Austin, as cool as our music scene is. It's not just Nashville. It is also some of these mid-sized cities who have one music venue or one theater that people go to all the time. And we do not want to let the music die during this pandemic. Enough people have died without letting the music die. So the whole idea with the bill, it is bipartisan. I've got 9 Republican senators on it, as well as a whole lot of Democrats. And the whole idea is to make sure that these businesses and their employees can make it through the next 6-8 months so we can get out the other side and still have music in America.
And amen, we need that. We got to have music in this country. I'm 100% there with you. And I'm glad you're getting bipartisan support on this with John Cornyn helping you as well. Is the hope that this would then get folded into the coronavirus stimulus package? Or do you even think that we still might even get some sort of coronavirus relief package?
I never give up hope. And, you know, we had the Speaker Pelosi and Senator Schumer in the last real negotiation said, we'll meet you halfway. And then they still balked and walked away, the White House and Mitch McConnell. And so the hope is when we get back there, having been in rural Minnesota the last few days, there are a lot of farmers who are hurting, rural hospitals, a lot of issues for the small towns out there. And I'm hoping my Republican colleagues are listening, because there is just no way we're going to be able to get out of this in a month. And everyone knows that. It doesn't matter how many arias they sing from the balcony of the White House or all their fancy stagecraft. The fact was 3,600 people died during that Republican convention. The fact is we have a lot of small businesses that are shuttering down. And my whole view here is you've just got to make it through this next 6 to 8 months so we can come out the other side. And you simply, in the case of the music venues, you can't go stand in a mosh pit in the middle of a pandemic. We know that. And so we've got to start looking at what we can do to make sure that the underpinnings of our economy, especially the small businesses, the big ones can always make it. I mean, Live Nation Ticketmaster got $500 million from the Saudi wealth fund invested in them during the pandemic. Well, that is not true of First Avenue in Minneapolis.
Yeah, those independent music venues are hurting so badly, and you just have to hope we're still going to be able to go see a lot of them down the road. I do want to pivot now and talk about the November election. Obviously, Joe Biden going to Kenosha, Wisconsin today. He's going to be talking about the unrest that's been happening in that town for a while. It's incredible to think, Senator Klobuchar, this really all started in your home state of Minnesota with George Floyd quite a few months ago. What has been your reaction that this issue has continuously persisted for this many months right now?
Well, it has persisted just like racism persists in our country. There is systemic racism, and we know that. And we saw George Floyd's life evaporate before our eyes. And that's why that case is being prosecuted by our Attorney General, Keith Ellison. It is why we are working as a community to gain back trust. But it's also why we need to pass police reform. So one of the reasons that it has persisted is that the president and the Republicans in Congress blocked police reform. That's one problem. The other problem is that the president continues to divide people when it comes to race issues. We know he does it every day. He tries to sow chaos. As Joe Biden said, that is his lifeline. That's the only way he thinks he can win the election. I was listening to your amusing discussion beforehand about he's telling people now to vote twice. Seriously, it is another example. Remember the goal here. He wants to sow chaos. So I think it's really important. The speech that Biden gave in Pittsburgh was so important, about how we do stand behind righteous protests, but rioting is not protest. Looting is not protest. That is lawlessness. And I also think it's important to talk about the fact that this all happened under Donald Trump's watch. Not only the issues that we're seeing with divide, but also the fact that people aren't safe in Donald Trump's America because of the pandemic. He is the one that didn't have a testing regime in place. He is the one that didn't work immediately with the rest of the world toward a vaccine. And believe me, people know he's trying to use this as a wedge. And they, bottom line, in the suburbs of Minnesota, in the rural areas, know they still can't visit their grandma at the nursing home.
Senator
That's
Klobuchar.
personal.
Yeah, Senator Klobuchar, I do want to talk about your home state of Minnesota. I think a lot of people forget how many votes Hillary Clinton ended up winning and prevailing in that state. About 44,000 votes is how many more she got in 2016. There's Democratic operatives now in your state that are sounding the alarms that President Trump could win Minnesota in 2020, and he might win the White House as a result of that. Are you feeling the same sense of urgency on the ground, and could your state be the tipping point here?
First of all, I always feel urgency on the ground. I'm the one that once put up 3,000 lawn signs in a local race when I had no opponent. So I believe that you fight for every single vote and you ask for every single person's support. And certainly our state has had a lot of close races throughout time, recounts and the like. So we never take one thing for granted. But even the recent morning consult poll, the most recent poll in Minnesota, showed that Joe Biden was up 7 points over Donald Trump. We have strong operation going here in Minnesota. Joe Biden is running ads. He's not taking anything for granted. And we are going to work hard for every single vote. And you see it with the suburban vote. And remember, elected a Democratic governor and a strong Democratic slate in Congress after Donald Trump was president. In 2018, our state came roaring back in a big way because they didn't like the kind of divide that they saw with Donald Trump. In our state, people work hard and they expect a federal government that works for them.
All right, Senator Amy Klobuchar, great to have you here. Thank you so very much for joining us today.